Hey YouTubers, and welcome back to my YouTube channel, Master That English, where we understand, analyze, and interpret the important texts and concepts that may be part of your English curriculum. Our topic for today will be the analysis of the short story written by Rajendra Singh Bedi, and the name of the work is Lajwanti. So get your pens and notepads ready because here we go. Who is Rajendra Singh Bedi? Rajendra Singh Bedi was a famous Urdu writer, playwright, screenwriter, and dialogue writer. Later, he also became a Hindi film director. He was a member of the Progressive Writers Movement, which focused on writing about social issues and the lives of ordinary people. He is regarded as one of the greatest progressive writers of 20th century Urdu literature. Bedi's writing career lasted for about 50 years, during which he wrote 72 short stories. His works are known for their variety, realism, and emotional depth. His short stories, Garam Kot and Lajwanti, are considered masterpieces of Urdu literature. His other well known collections include Kok Jali, Apne Dukh Mujhe De Do, and a collection of plays called Saath Khel. Let us try to understand now, why is Rajendra Singh called India's Chekhov? Professor Muhammad Mujib, the Vice Chancellor of Jamia Millia Islamia from 1948 to 1973, introduced Bedi as India's Anton Chekhov. Professor Muhammad Mujib compared Rajendra Singh Bedi to this famous Russian writer Anton Chekhov because both wrote realistic stories with deep understanding of human emotions. As Bedi has presented Lajwanti not as a mere victim, but he explores the psychological aftermath of trauma, the limits of forgiveness, and the patriarchal tendency to value women's honor over their humanity. The similarities between Bedi and Chekhov's style of writing are as follows. Both share psychological depth that is focused on the thoughts and emotions of ordinary people with complex personalities. Both have a compassionate writing that shows human suffering with empathy without melodrama. They have ordinary lives of the people, which includes common people like refugees, housewives, workers, and middle class families. There is a subtle social criticism that exposes the social problems through everyday life instead of direct preaching. Both like to include open endings, and this is what leaves the stories without clear resolution, encouraging readers to think. They have a simple, powerful style that uses clear, simple language where small details carry deep meaning. Despite being a male writer, how is Rajendra Singh Bedi able to look at things so minutely from a woman's perspective in Lajbanti? The external and internal factors in Bedi's life have contributed to this sensibility. He lost his mother, Seva Dai, to tuberculosis in 1933 while he was studying at the DAV College in Lahore. After her death, his father, Hira Singh Bedi, resigned from his job as a postmaster, and Rajendra Singh Bedi left college in 1933 to work at the post office and support the family. The external environment also contributed as he was born in Lahore and witnessed the trauma of partition and the impact it had on the families affected. Let us now try to understand, how was Rajendra Singh Bedi different from his contemporary? He was an important member of the progressive writers movement, along with the famous writers like Sadat Hussain Manto, Ishmat Chautai, and Krishna Chandar. However, his writing style was different from theirs. While Manto wrote bold and shocking stories, Chotai openly exposed social problems. Bedi focused on the emotions and psychology of ordinary people. He also blended Indian myths and cultural traditions naturally into his stories, making his writing simple, realistic, and deeply meaningful. Let us now understand what is Rajendra Singh Bedi's style of writing. As we already compared him with Chekhov, we have been able to see that the psychosocial realism is preferred over melodrama. Rajendra Singh Bedi wrote about the everyday lives of ordinary people. He focused on their thoughts, emotions, and struggles rather than using exaggerated drama. His stories show how poverty, social inequality, and injustice affect people's mind and lives. For example, in Garam Coat or Warm Coat, Bedi shows the worries and dreams of poor middle class clerk who struggles to support his family during financial hardship. We also see strong and sensitive female characters. Bedi created women who were realistic, brave, and emotionally strong. Instead of showing them only as helpless victims, he explored their inner feelings, pain, and courage while facing social injustice and male domination. For example, Lajpanti tells the story of a woman who suffers during the partition and struggles to regain respect and acceptance in society. In his other short story, Ek Chadar Melisi, shows a woman's fight for survival in a patriarchal rural society. He also likes to use myths and symbols. Bedi often used Indian myths, folklore, and symbols to make his stories deeper and more meaningful. These symbols helped him explain human suffering, social problems, and old beliefs. In Grahan, that is eclipse, the eclipse becomes a symbol of the suffering and helplessness of young women. We also see the use of simple language with the Punjabi touch. Bedi's language was natural and easy to understand. Instead of using difficult and highly Persianized Urdu, he mixed Urdu with Punjabi words, idioms, and everyday expressions. This made his dialogue sound realistic and close to ordinary people's speech. And then we see there is a shift from literature to cinema. Bedi was not only a famous writer, but also a successful screenwriter and film director. He brought the same realism, natural conversations, and deep understanding of human emotions into his films, making his screenplays as powerful as his stories. What is the backdrop of Lajwanti? Rajendra Singh Bedi's short story Lajwanti is set during the time of the 1947 partition of India and Pakistan. It focuses on what happened after partition, especially the problems faced by women who were kidnapped during the violence and later brought back to their families. We also have to understand what were the social conditions of that time. There was a large scale suffering. During the partition riots, about 100,000 women were kidnapped on both sides of the India Pakistan border. As many families were separated, people suffered. There was also a rehabilitation movement. The governments of India and Pakistan, along with social workers, tried to find these women and return them to their families. There is a Sita comparison. Many people compared the returning women to Sita. who returned home after being held captive in Lanka. Although society praised these women in public, many families still doubted their purity and did not fully accept them because of patriarchal beliefs. The silence after the violin. Bedi does not describe the violence of partition in detail. Instead, he shows the emotional pain that came afterward. Let us try to understand the plot summary of this work. In the first part, we observe the loss. During the violence of the 1947 partition, a shy and gentle woman named Lajwanti or Lajo is kidnapped by a Muslim man. Her husband, Sundarlal, escapes safely. In the next part, we see the guilt, where, after the partition, Sundarlal joins a committee that works to bring back kidnapped women and help their families accept them. Before Lajo was kidnapped, however, he had often beaten and mistreated her. But now he feels guilty about the way he had treated her. In the next part, The Return, as part of a government program to exchange abducted women between India and Pakistan, Lajo is brought back. She looks healthy and seems to have been treated well while she was in Pakistan. In the aftermath, Sundarlal accepts Lajo back into his home. But instead of treating her like his wife, he treats her like a goddess. He is very gentle with her and never hurts her, but he does not allow her to talk about what happened to her during her time away. And in the last part, which is the tragic ending, although Lajo is accepted by her husband, she is not truly happy. She feels trapped because she cannot speak about her past or express her feeling. By treating her like a goddess instead of a normal woman, Sundarlal fails to understand her pain. In the end, Lajo realizes that her husband has accepted her body, but not her true self or her emotional suffering. Now, what is the symbolism of the title? The title Lajwanti refers to the touch me not plant, which is also called Mimosa pudica. Its leaves fold up as soon as someone touches them. In the same way, Lajwanti and other abducted women become emotionally hurt and sensitive because of the terrible experiences they have gone through. Like the plant, they hide their pain and remain silent about their suffering. If this is the case, why were the rehabilitation committees set up? The rehabilitation committees were set up in the 1947, just after the partition of India and Pakistan, to help the people who had lost everything to relocate. We also need to understand why were the rehabilitation committees set up in every mohalla and every locality. Rehabilitation committees were set up in every mohalla and locality like trade for the displaced, land for the refugees, and homes for the dispossessed. And when we try to understand about these committees, it is also important to understand why was the rehabilitation committee neglected by everyone. The program for the rehabilitation of women who had been abducted and raped was neglected by everyone because society was unwilling to accept abducted women and continued to judge them instead of treating them as innocent victims. Many families believed that a woman who had been abducted had lost her honor. Even though she was a victim, society blamed the women instead of the people who had kidnapped them. People felt ashamed to bring these women back into their homes. As a result, very few people supported the committee's work or attended its meetings. While people talked about compassion and honor in public, they often fail to treat the returned women with understanding and respect in their personal lives. So, why was Sundarlal chosen as the head of this committee? This is because no one could be trusted to do the job with greater zeal and commitment than Sundarlal, because his own wife had been abducted. Her name, as we know now, was Lajo or Lajwanti. And we need to understand, why did Sundarlal's voice begin to choke with tears whenever he started singing?
Do not touch Lajwanti, for she will curl up and die.
The song is about the touch me not plant and Lajwanti, whose leaves closed up when touched. Sundarlal's voice filled with tears because the song reminds him of his gentle and shy and emotionally sensitive wife, Lajwanti or Lajo. Before the partition, Sundarlal would often beat and mistreat her, without realizing how deeply he hurt her. After she is kidnapped, he begins to regret his behavior. Whenever he heard the song, he is reminded of his wife's gentle nature and felt guilty for being an abusive husband. Also, it was the beginning of his personal transformation. This song also holds a very personal significance for the male protagonist, as whenever Sundarlal would touch the tattoos of Lajwanti's body, she would curl up like a touch me not.
Of the humiliation they have suffered, don't ever reopen their wounds. They are gentle and fragile like the leaves of a Lajwanti. You touch them, they will curl up and die.
So, who arranged for the exchange of the abducted women? Miss Mridula Sarabhai arranged for the exchange of abducted women between India and Pakistan. Some families from the Mohalla Shakur agreed to take them back into their homes. And what is important to now understand is, why did Bedi incorporate folk music in the narrative of Lajwanti? What is interesting to see in the short story is that the male members of the Rehabilitation Committee for Women are comprising of Sundarlal and his companions, who would begin singing a song and raising slogans early in the morning as a part of their campaign to encourage people to accept abducted women into society. The song was heard by everyone in the locality, but it had a different impact on the men and the women. The men singing the song have accepted the reality, but not internalized the essence of the song. The loud singing and slogans would wake up people early in the morning. The women were more impacted, like the widow who was living in house number 414 in Mohalla Shakur. She became restless because the songs reminds her of the painful memories of the partition, where many families lost their loved ones and many women were abducted. Like many people in the neighborhood, she feels sad, disturbed, and emotionally affected by those memories. Her uneasy movement also reflects the discomfort of society in facing the issue of abducted women. People know the problem exists, but they find it difficult to accept or talk about it openly. The widow's brief reaction shows that the wounds of the partitions are still fresh. Even a simple morning song brings back grief and guilt. Through this small detail, Rajendra Singh Bedi shows that the pain of the partition was shared not only by the abducted women, but by the entire community. Although different people experienced it in different ways, Bedi uses the folk song as folk songs were a part of the everyday life. Using one makes the story feel authentic and reflects the shared memories and traditions of ordinary people. The particular song is also a symbol of Lajwanti's innocence and sensitivity. It helps to deepen the emotional impact and connect the story to Punjabi culture and criticize society's treatment of women after partition. So let us now understand why was Sundarlal shocked when he saw Lajo. Sundarlal was shocked as Lajo looked healthier than before. Her complexion seemed clearer and her eyes brighter. She had put on weight. She looked different from what he had imagined. He had thought that suffering and sorrow would have reduced her to mere skeleton, that she wouldn't have the strength to even utter a few words. But then, why did Lajo stand before Sundar Lal trembling with hope and despair? In Lajwanti, Lajo or Lajwanti stands before Sundar Lal trembling with hope and despair because she does not know how he will react to her return. Lajo is filled with opposite emotion. There is hope because she believes she has finally returned to her husband and hopes he will accept her with love. But there is also despair because she fears he might reject her, blame her for her abduction, or refuse to take her back, as many families did that with abducted women after partition. She has suffered greatly during her abduction and has no control over what has happened to her. Now her future depends entirely on Sundarlal's response. This is why she trembles? Yes, she trembles because she is emotionally and physically exhausted after months of suffering. She is afraid of being rejected by her own husband. She desperately wants to belong to her home again. She feels uncertain about whether she will be accepted or abandoned. This moment highlights the tragic condition of many abducted women after partition. Their greatest fear was not only the violence they had suffered, but also whether their own families and society would accept them again. Lajo's trembling shows her deep emotional pain and her longing for love, dignity, and a place to call home. So, why did he call Lajwanti Devi after she returns from Pakistan? Sundar Lal calls Lajwanti Devi after she returns because he feels guilty about the way he treated her before. She was abducted. He wants to show her great respect and make up for his past mistakes. Before the partition, Sundarlal would often beat and mistreat Laju. After she is kidnapped, he realizes how much he loved her and feels deep regret. When she returns, instead of treating her like an ordinary wife, he starts calling her Devi. He becomes extremely gentle and never scolds or hurts her. However, he does not allow her to talk about her experiences during her abduction. Through Sundarlal, Bedi highlights the hypocrisy of men who outwardly forgive women but refuse to accept their lived human experiences. By turning Lajo into a deity, Sundarlal avoids dealing with the reality of her abduction.
Let us forget the past. You didn't do anything sinful, did you? Our society is guilty because it refuses to honor women like you as goddesses. It ought to be ashamed of itself. You shouldn't be dishonored.
Although Sundarlal stopped beating Lajo and treated her with great respect, he did not treat her as an equal human being. He called her Devi instead of allowing her to be his wife. He did not allow her to talk because her experience during her abduction would torture him further, and he worshipped her so that he could just silence her. This image shows that Sundar Lal's love is mixed with guilt, pity, and reverence. And it shows his hypocrisy because, as per Rajendra Singh Bedi's representation, he suggests that women do not need to be treated as goddesses or idols. They need to be accepted as ordinary human beings with the freedom to speak, express their feelings, and live with dignity. So, what was Lajwanti's response when Sundarlal asked her about her experience with Jamal?
Um, he didn't beat me, but I was terrified of him. You used to beat me, but I was never afraid of you. You will never beat me again, will you?
This quotation from Lajwanti is one of the most powerful moments in the story. It reveals the complex emotions of Lajwanti and exposes the irony in her relationship with Sundarlal. As she is comparing two different kinds of relationship, the man who abducted her never physically beat her, but she lived in constant fear because she had no freedom, security, or control over her life. She was completely dependent on him and could not predict what might happen to her. Whereas, in the case of Sundar Lal, her husband, he used to beat her before partition. Domestic violence was common and often accepted in their society. Even though he hurt her physically, she still felt emotionally connected to him and believed he would not abandon her. Therefore, she says she was never truly afraid of him. You will never beat me again, will you? This particular question has several meanings. On the surface level, she hopes for a new beginning, which is why she is asking this as a question. She wants their relationship to be based on love, respect, rather than violence. She also, through this statement, reminds Sundarlal of his past behavior. Without accusing him directly, she gently points out that he had mistreated her before. She is also seeking reassurance because after suffering the trauma of abduction, she longs for safety and acceptance. And it also shows her innocence and vulnerability. She does not ask for revenge or complain about her suffering. She simply asks for kindness. This is why the statement contains a deep irony, as although he no longer beats her physically, he silences her and refuses to let her speak about her experiences. In this way, physical violence is replaced by emotional control. This quotation shows that violence is not only physical but also emotional and psychological. The writer suggests that while Sundarlal changes outwardly after partition, he does not fully recognize Lajwanti as an individual with her own voice and experiences. Her simple question, "You will never beat me again, will you?" becomes a quiet plea for dignity, equality, and genuine love rather than mere worship or pity. And this is why the story concludes with the line, "She had returned home, but she had lost everything." Sundarlal had neither the eyes to see her tears nor the ears to hear her sobs. Why are these concluding lines important? These heartbreaking lines by Lajwanti express the central message of the story that although Lajwanti has returned to her husband and her home, she has not truly regained her life or happiness. She has lost her peace of mind because of the trauma of abduction. Her identity as Sundarlal no longer treats her in the right way a husband should treat his wife, because now her identity has been changed into idol worship, because he now calls her Devi. We notice a silence in her voice because she is not allowed to speak about what she went through. And in this normal married life, where she can freely express her feelings, she is now left to suffer from within. And this is why Sundarlal couldn't see the tears and hear her sobs. So, why couldn't Sundarlal see her tears or hear her sobs? This does not mean that Sundarlal was physically blind or deaf. It means that he was so busy worshipping Lajwanti that he forgets to understand her. He believed that respecting her kept her past hidden, and he wanted to do so because he never asked about her pain or listened to her feelings. He saw her as a symbol of purity and not as a woman who needed love, understanding, and emotional support. This is why it is a sentence that highlights irony before partition in Sundarlal's behavior, who, even though tried to beat his wife before partition and treated her badly, today, after partition, he worships her like a goddess. In both these situations, Sundarlal has failed to treat his wife as an equal human being. Earlier, he controlled her through physical violence, and now it is through idol worship. So, this is how the final lines show that coming home does not mean healing. Lajwanti's body has returned, but her emotional wounds remain intact. She needs someone to listen to her pain, not merely admire or worship her. And that is how Rajendra Singh Bedi ends the story with these lines that are sad and definitely do criticize a society that is willing to honor women but not hear them. True rehabilitation is not simply bringing an abducted woman back home. It means accepting her as a human being, listening to her experiences, respecting her emotions, allowing her to rebuild her life with dignity. So, this is why the ending reminds us that sympathy without understanding cannot heal trauma. Do you see a difference between the divine goddess and a mortal woman in this short story? The difference between a divine goddess and a mortal woman are multiple. Let us try to see the difference. First, where a goddess is worshipped by keeping her on a pedestal because man does not expect her to express since she is divine. On the other hand, a woman who is treated as an ordinary human being has the right to be ill treated by the husband. You also see that a goddess is believed to be perfect and pure, whereas a woman is expected to have strength that is through silence and is expected not to express her feeling if it is going against the family's honor. Where a goddess is expected to remain silent because her role is to listen to the problems of humanity. On the other hand, the only right a woman has is that she can cry, laugh, and express her feelings, but by the end of the day, she has to accept the norms that have been laid down for her. As per humanity, men think that the goddess does not require any emotional support because she is divine. On the other hand, even though a mortal woman needs love and understanding, if it is at the point of a person's honor, that love and understanding takes a back seat. This is why the goddess is a preferred choice who can be admired from a distance. Whereas, if the woman does not abide by the norms of the society, keeping her close and as an equal individual is not the choice that men like to keep. And this is how we can understand why Lajo becomes Devi, because in the eyes of Sundarlal, he is only trying to make sure that his pain, his humiliation does not undergo further pain by knowing the adverse aspects relating to her past. Lajo does not want to be the goddess here. She wants to be accepted as a normal woman who has suffered, survived, and deserves love, trust, and understanding. So, this is how a goddess is worshipped but kept at a distance, while a mortal woman needs love, respect, and the freedom to express her feeling. In the story, Sundarlal treats Lajo like a goddess, but what she really needs is to be accepted as a human being. And this is the reason why we can also ask the question, if Sundarlal really changed? The answer is no. Because in both the cases, we have sensed that although he kept Lajwanti happy by providing her all the comforts, she was definitely like a bird in the cage, who did not deserve to express and spread her wings the way a bird would do it. Because she has to live by the conditions that Sundarlal had curated for her after the abduction. So, this is how she is now no longer treated as an ordinary human being. She is kept in a different environment where she can continue leading her life and acknowledge her existence with the kind of treatment that Sundarlal gives her. And this is how we notice that the pain of women in the story is never really realized. Women undergo pain throughout their life, and this is what needs to be changed for a change to come. And we also get to see the aspect of war, as into why are women expected to be silent at times of war, while men are in their aggressive counterparts always? Because in Lajwanti and in many societies affected by war, women are often expected to remain silent, while men are seen as the fighters or aggressors. This expectation comes from the patriarchal social value, not from any natural difference between men and women. Men are expected to fight and protect the community. Society often associates men with strength, power, and violence during war. On the other hand, women are expected to protect their family honor. They are expected to be modest, obedient, silent, even when they are the victims of violence, which is why they are the preferred sex for sacrifice when the honor of the family is at stake. During wars, women's bodies are often treated as symbols of family and community honor. This is why women were abducted and assaulted in many cultures, as society wrongly sees it as a loss of honor for the family and the representation of one's power and victory over the community. And this is the reason why women are often discouraged from speaking about their experiences. People fear shame and social judgment more than they can care about women's suffering. This is how this novel sensitizes us, makes us aware about so many aspects. And most importantly, we also see this novel from a psychological perspective, as into how is man's perspective different from that of woman's. It tells us a lot about social expectations that people share, because of which they represent their behavior in a certain way. Rajendra Singh Bedi uses Sundarlal and Lajwanti to highlight their contrasting perspective. We see in both the emotional processing and expression, where Lajwanti seeks emotional connection, while Sundarlal tries to solve the problem by changing her social status without addressing her emotional wounds. We also see the communication styles of both genders, where Lajwanti values emotional connection and Sundarlal focuses on preserving social respectability rather than discussing painful reality. We also see in both the response towards stress. Lajwanti is able to cope up better by seeking closeness as a protocol to heal herself. But Sundarlal copes by emotionally distancing himself from the painful truth. And in this way, he not only causes harm to himself but to everyone who is close to him. It is his wife. We also see that in two genders, the decision making is so extreme. Where Lajwanti's concern is about emotional security, Sundarlal's decision is to influence social reputation. And he thinks that this is the practical solution with which his family life, his mental peace would undergo a peaceful solution. We also get to see in both the moral and ethical thinking, where Lajwanti represents the ethics of care, valuing love and relationship. Sundarlal represents the ethics of justice, believing that he is doing morally right according to the social ideals, and failing to understand the emotional needs of women. This is how man becomes practical and women emotional. But when they go to the extremeness of their representation, this is where both undergo a level of rupture and both are not able to heal themselves. So the hurt is not just for women, it is also for men who are connected with them, and because of their overtly practical nature, they fail to emotionally heal themselves and also the victims who they are living with. This is how the story is very essential because it helps us to understand the experiences of the trauma victims and helps us to understand the emotional understanding, the honest communication, and equality that needs to be established between the two genders. It is true, the heavens are no more than an illusion created by our fearful imagination, and the sky is merely the fullest thing to which our eyes can see. This is what Rajendra Singh Bedi challenged in the traditional religious beliefs and argues that we should understand the world through reason and observation rather than unquestioned faith. But the narrator says that the real answer is not in heaven. It lies in showing kindness, courage, humanity to those who have suffered. This is also applicable for Sundarlal when he deals with Lajwanti. And through this quotation, he encourages the readers to question traditional beliefs and to rely on reason rather than fear of superstition. This is how this particular short story allows us to see the society is more concerned with religious rules, honor, and reputation rather than suffering of women, which is what needs to be changed. Because the bruise for one is like a rupture for the entire community. And this is what needs to be improved. And we understand this concept very well through this short story. That brings us to the end of this lecture. I hope you have been able to understand the beautiful narration with which Rajendra Singh Bedi allows us to see the trauma experienced by victims and how the families and everybody in the society is affected and how everybody is trying to avoid this problem as a code of healing themselves and preserving their identity and honor in the society in which they live in. Do give it a like if you feel it was helpful in any way for you. Share it with a person who you feel can also benefit. And do join the family so that you can learn more and more about literature as we keep moving ahead. And this is me, Karishma. Until we meet next time, take care.